Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How many of you out there knew
Technical,
Barbara
Fred.
Coe? Huh? How many of you out there knew Barbara Coe? We were all her friends, everybody. It's everybody.
Robert.
Okay.
Robert. Where's Robert? Close.
18 months ago, 18 months ago, I was introduced to Barbara Coe and a number of other people from a group called CCIR. I met Deborah Courtney, and I heard an incredible story about a scam, a non-profit scam. The Minuteman Project was nothing more than a gigantic scam. For years now, Jim Gilchrist has tried to cover up that scam in court. He's invested over $1.5 million of donor money to keep Deborah Courtney silent. Barbara Coe wanted very much to expose this scam. She was instrumental in bringing Jim Gilchrist into the limelight, and she felt terrible that he abused her and everybody that they knew. So I started to collect information about the Minuteman scam. I looked through dozens and dozens of boxes of court reports, evidence, documents of all kinds, receipts, canceled checks, shadow bank accounts, all kind of things. I spoke to dozens of people, maybe 35 people, and heard anecdotes about what had happened over the last 8 years regarding the Minuteman Project, Jim Gilchrist, and the whole scam. After studying all that, going to court a half a dozen times, and seeing all these people in action, I began to compile all the information. And there's, when you see on the cover, there are 80 boxes of information pertinent to this story. That evidence is in this book. This is a non-fiction book. Everything in this book is substantiated by physical evidence. There are anecdotes, but they're all substantiated by physical evidence. I didn't take any conjecture from anybody. And so, over that amount of time, I organized all the information and I put it together as best as I think anyone could into this book, Murder of a Little Girl. Now, a number of people just recently have said, what does Murder of a Little Girl have to do with the Minuteman Project? Well, the Minuteman Project was very careless about who they associated with. When I say the Minuteman Project, not everybody. There was a board of directors that worked very hard to legitimize the actions of the Minuteman, and they did a great job of it, but at one point, the criminal element took over. And when they did, they brought in more criminals. And one group of those criminals went down to Arizona, and they blasted a father and mother and a little girl. They killed the father, they severely wounded the mother, and they murdered the little girl, 9 years old, Presenia Flores. So, there's plenty of crimes in this book. But which one was the worst? Was it the murder of the little girl was the worst? Was it stealing the donor money the worst? Was it emasculating the anti-illegal immigration movement the worst? Everybody has a different take on the story, but no one knows the story as it's told in this book, because this book is the story of dozens and dozens of people and a mountain of evidence. So what we're doing is we're encouraging everybody to buy the book and to read it. Coming up on September 25th, it's a Wednesday night, we're going to have a CCIR meeting where we're going to resuscitate the CCIR as best we can. The meeting is going to be totally devoted to discussing all the topics and subjects in this book. I'm hoping that you'll all attend that meeting. At the table outside, you can get a copy of this flyer. It's an invitation to come to the CCIR meeting. Are you going to hand one to everybody, Deborah? I think that's great. Do that. Thank you. And what we're going to do is we're going to expose this guy. And I say this guy, it's really a number of people. But we're going to expose him, and we're going to put a stop to this. So I guess I'll time this up. Thank you all very much.
You're right now, is that correct? Some of these.
You didn't record that?
You know what? Once you do a little summary, we weren't set up to record at that point. We're passing stuff out. Let's finish that up.
Okay, he's going to do a 2-minute synopsis of what he just told everyone about, and you've all heard it, and it'll just be a little extra reminder. We want to make a video of the memorialization.
And some of you are in these pictures. We're going to run through them because you know what? Barbara Coe is a life of joy. She's a spirit of joy. She motivated us. She moved us. She kept us going forward. And we are going to be going forward from here. I have the chills. She's here. I can feel it. This is Barbara Coe, American Patriot. Next.
Turn the lights down. Let's turn down the lights. No, you're back. You're back against the wall. Darrell, can you?
There you go.
Good.
Barbara Coe, American Patriot. Next.
There you go. Turn the projector to the right.
On the Pine River Ridge Reservation. She is an American Indian. So here we have where she was born on the Pine Ridge Reservation. I was very close to her because of this. I always think of her like a mother figure. I was adopted. My mother was born very close on the Cheyenne River Reservation. So Barbara's Oglala Sioux and I am Lakota Sioux. So we have that in common. And that is part of her spirit. She came to California, but she was able to hone her skills by looking at the Badlands. How many have ever been to the Badlands? Well, that one bad mama, that's where she honed her skills. Next. This amazing woman always was up for a rally. How many people here have ever rallied with Barbara Coe? And she's louder than even me. How many have heard her be louder than me? Yeah, more people raised their hands than went to the rally. You must have heard her from your homes. Did you know she loved Elvis? This is what Coe told me about Elvis. Go again. She loved Elvis and more Elvis and even more Elvis. She told me that when she worked at Anaheim Police Department, what she used to do, what she used to do is get a babysitter to come over at 8 o'clock at night. And then she and her girlfriend would get all gussied up, hop in the car, drive to Las Vegas and see him for his closing act at 12 o'clock and throw, I'm not going to tell you what they threw at him, but you know, she was young at one time, okay? And then they'd leave at 2 o'clock in the morning after the show was over and go back to work at Anaheim Police Department. Let me tell you, one of Coe's most prized possessions is a teddy bear that Elvis Presley threw her directly into the audience. Next. She is the one and only Barbara Coe. Next. She had people design different rally posters for her. She was always wanting to go to a rally. So here's the header for her California Coalition for Immigration Reform. But she always believed that the bears should be chasing out the illegal aliens. Hence that logo. You can see that at her website, ccir.net. Next. And she was always carrying that sign with her. So proud, so many people, by herself with the group. She didn't care. She was going to go to a rally. Next. There she is up close with her CCIR shirt. Next.
Can you turn the light off?
Can you turn the next slide off too, Darrell?
There you go.
Oh. And Except for Jeannie, there was nobody who was more happy to say the Pledge of Allegiance. What am I saying? I'm in a crowd of patriots, but she's just another one of us that love to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Next. She also fought very hard against the North. Next. And here she was with the Save Our State initiative, and that was her favorite jacket. So many of us remember her in that jacket. Next. And here's that police line. You know what you don't see there is all the bad guys are on this side of the police line, and the police were protecting us because you know what? They know illegal means illegal, and they didn't like illegal aliens either. So next, there's a gentleman saying, come here, this is where you sign your petition, and she had so many people that would come and rally with her. Next. And one thing that was famous about Coe was that beautiful head of hair. That's how come I put that picture in right there. She's over to the right. That's okay. Next.
Yeah.
And singing. Coe would sing, and that's with Ted Hayes. You couldn't keep her from ever singing about our nation's great blessings. Next. And here are the students that were fighting against Prop 187. Like Lupe said, there's always few of us and thousands of them. Next. There's Barbara and I at the Washington, D.C. What Robert said was that Coe would actually lobby. Not too many people understand that that's where you make a difference. Going out and running down around the halls of Congress and actually stopping the senators, stopping the congressmen, looking them in the eye and saying, do not vote for amnesty. And that was Coe and I there. Here's Coe at another rally in Laguna Canyon. I recognize some faces here tonight that were at that rally. This one was about identifying that people should not pick up and hire illegal aliens and bring them to their place of work. So she was trying to save American jobs. Next. And this is just a little montage. Again, the cops were always on our side. They'd look at you and look like they're tough and wink at you because they know what you're doing is right, standing up for American principles. Next. And here is some of our guys here. Vaughn actually bought all those signs to honor Barbara Coe and CCIR and get the message out. Home Depot rallies, Laguna Canyon rallies, they're all the same. Barb Coe, the first one there, always the last one to leave. Next. And there's our good friend Scott Powelson, and Vaughn is in the back of the room tonight, rallying, and Barbara Coe, their inspiration. Next. There's Scotty. Let's give a round of Scotty. He's not here. We're hot. He's Arizona. Next. There's Robin. Arrest employers standing up for American jobs. Next. A montage. Barbara Coe was also instrumental in bringing the fight for sovereignty for the state to other states. These people in Arizona are standing up for their rights too. And Barbara Coe would spend hours on the phone with people teaching them how to put together rallies and marches. Next. Behead those who enforce immigration laws? Huh? Anyway, that's some of the vitriol that we had to put up with, and more than anybody else Barbara Coe had to put up with. There's Ted Hayes and the police right between him and the illegal aliens. Next. Another montage. Barb Coe, the inspiration for having people come together and rally. Next. Seal the borders, stop the invasion, save our countries. Next. Save jobs for American workers, inspired by Barbara Coe. Next. There's Coe in a march. That's the scariest march I've ever been to. I've never seen more middle fingers in my life than all the people taking benefits from us, lining up the side of the road. 100 of us, thousands and thousands of them, chanting in the air. Terrible situation. But there's Barb Coe in line, in the middle, first one there, walking down the road. Next. Coe, Shalene, and the Crispus Attucks Brigade. Next. Stopping illegal immigration. You know, not only were we filming the other side, but that's somebody up close in Barb Coe's face. That's what she had to put up with, people taking pictures like that of her. Next. The border. How many of you have been to the border? Okay. Co at the border. That's how porous it is. You think anybody can't get over that wall right there? Very thin wall. Staying, shining flashlights, light up the night. Hundreds of cars parked against the border, and one night they all flipped their lights on at the same time. You could see all the illegal aliens scattered. Next. There's Co again. First one to the rally, last one to leave. Next. John and Barbara March. How many know about Deputy David March that was killed along the highway, pulled over an illegal alien that didn't want to go back to prison, murdered in cold blood? I met Barbara at a March for Justice for David March. In fact, it was the first time I met her, and I saw she was here, she was there, she was here, she was there. I know she's fast, but really what it was is Evelyn and Lane, Jackie and Barb all looked alike, and they're all the same petite woman. I was a different lady, but they were all over the place. Deputy David March, in his memory. Next. Armando Garcia. Barbara Co rallied tremendously to make sure to keep the pressure on the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department to make sure that they would capture Armando Garcia. No human is illegal. Well, I would say Armando Garcia was illegal. Next. Lupe Moreno. Lupe mentioned that she had a child that was very ill. What she didn't tell you is that her nephew was actually murdered by an illegal alien. Barb Co stood strong with those whose children were taken too quickly from this earth because of illegal aliens. Next. Agent Rosas. How many of you know about Agent Rosas? Our Border Patrol agents are getting shot one by one so often. Next. In memory of Agent Rosas. Next. Free Ramos and Compion. How many of you kept Ramos and Compion in your prayers? Amen to that. Next. And you know what? Not only would Co be issue-oriented and be cause-oriented, she was also very politically active. If you were a candidate that needed money, that needed the word, that needed somebody to walk for you, to walk precincts, Co was there to support you. If you'd sign that pledge, you would never vote for amnesty. And who do we have in our corner here? Tom Tancredo, who, by the way, is running for governor again of Colorado. Next. And here's our Eagle Forum women. Barb Co, one thing that was special about her, she was never jealous of other groups. She would promote your group, she would raise money for you, she would promote you, and she wanted you to be as successful as CCIR. And that's what made her so successful, was her selflessness. So here she is, promoting Tom Tancredo. I think we had a room of 600 people that night, raising money for Tom. Next. And here's our Eagle Forum members again, and Lupe Moreno and her sister. Next. Barb Co giving interviews, giving orders. John Clark, Wiley Drake giving direction to make sure there's a successful event. Next. More direction, more organization. Johnny always handing out flyers. Co would call him up and say, I need a flyer, bring it. There's Jerry, there's, is that Azola? That's Azola. Always working rallies and promoting candidates. Next. Steve King, Azola, there's Dick Nichols at the Capitol, making sure that we get the message out through our congressmen. Next. Who's paying for alien instant citizenship? Well, we know. We're paying for it. Alan Mansour, another great guy running for office. If you need somebody to help you with your campaign and walk precincts, you went to Barb Co. She vetted you tougher than anybody else. And she would sick her CCIR members on the streets of your neighborhood. Next. Terry Anderson, Lupe. Next. Ted Hayes, Co, Jeannie, next. Dorothy, Co, a whole group, Phyllis Schlafly. Everybody wanted Barb Co to speak because she's so inspiring. Next. Terry Anderson, next. Rally, next. Rally again, next. Whoa, I think she chased out more than one or two. Next. That's my husband. We're gonna miss Barbara Co. Next. Elvis is gonna see Barbara Co again. Next. I'm sure he's getting tired. Barbara Coe, our real American legend. My friend said it right when he said they didn't start as the Minutemen, it was really the Minute Women. And I want to acknowledge and recognize some of those Minute Women that are here tonight. Evelyn, will you please stand? I'd like everybody to give Evelyn a round of applause. Elaine Crowfoot, can you please stand?
Thank you, Jeannie, for asking me to help Eagle Forum kick off another great year during Constitution Month. And who here tonight knows what day this month we celebrate as Constitution Day? The 17th, September the 17th. Deborah mentioned that I have been teaching the Constitution for 17 years using Dr. Eidsmoe's Institute on the Constitution series. How many people here have been students of mine in that class? Look at this, it's great. Thank you so much. For those of you who might want to sign up for the class, there's a sign-up sheet in the front. I'll be out there after the presentation. All 17 years, people have asked me, don't you have something short? I mean, this 12-week class is wonderful, but that's a major time commitment. And people would always say, don't you have something short? Don't you have something short? And I never really did. So finally, I got, I don't know a whole lot about marketing, but I know when your public says you need to do something, then you need to do it. So I finally took the time to put together a shorter presentation. This normally runs 45 minutes. So I don't know, are we able to go just a little over tonight, Jeannie? Okay. So I'm going to go through this rather rapidly. We'll do it as quickly as we can. But the title of my presentation is, appropriately enough, Organizing the Powers.
Want the lights out, Steve?
Yeah, let's turn,
Well,
no, they're half on and half off right now, right?
Yeah.
Let's swap them. Let's go the other way. Just turn one off and the other one on. There we go. It's about 6 of one, half of one.
Is it better the other way?
You liked it better the other way? Okay, let's go back.
There, that's the way.
There we go. Okay. Organizing the powers. The United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It says so in Article 6. This Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land. It is not God's perfect law. However, it is man's best law. It organizes and limits the powers of the federal government so that it has only enough powers to secure we the people's safety and happiness. You look at those great words in the introduction to the Declaration of Independence. It says to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles. That's the Declaration of Independence. I have a separate presentation called Laying the Foundation, 13 Declaration Principles that I'd love to present to you. That lasts about 25 minutes. And tonight, we're not going to talk about that. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Constitution. The Declaration goes on to say, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect or bring about their safety and happiness. That is the Constitution. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. There it is. 4 pages of parchment. Now I realize you can't read that, but there it is, the United States Constitution. We still have it. It's divided into 7 different articles. The first one deals with the legislature, always the most important first. Article 2 deals with the executive branch. Article 3 deals with the judicial branch. Article 4 deals with relationships primarily among the states. Article 5 lays out the process by which the Constitution may be amended. Article 6 contains that supremacy clause. It also contains the oath that all federal officers must take. And Article 7 deals with the ratification process. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, said, every word of it decides a question between power and liberty. Every word of it. We need to back up just a little bit and look at the need for government. Why do we need government? Well, it's simple. Because man is sinful, self-interested, and corruptible. Jeremiah tells us in 17:9, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Madison said, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. Well, that's theologically not quite correct, because we must remember that fully 1/3 of the angels fell. And even angels need order. So, civil government is necessary. as an enforcer of God's natural law. And civil government is one of 3 human institutions that are ordained by God. Does anyone know what the other 2 are? What's one of them?
Family.
Family. What's the other? The church. Okay? The family, the church, and civil government are the 3 human institutions ordained by God. So what then is the purpose of government? That's one of the questions for the night. Here it is. To protect our natural rights, which of course are God-given, and the Declaration tells us so. Government must restrain the exercise of sin in order to protect our natural rights. Romans 13:3 and 4, that famous verse. Rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. For civil government is a minister of God to you for good. But if you do what is evil, be afraid. For it does not bear the sword for nothing, for it is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath on the one who practices evil. That's God's plan for civil government. It does this also by maintaining order. Benjamin Franklin in the Pennsylvania Gazette, November 20, 1735, wrote, "All true happiness, as all that is truly beautiful, can only result from order." That sounds like Ben Franklin. 1 Timothy 2:2 tells us that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. So, that is the purpose of government, to protect our natural, God-given rights. However, there's a nasty fact of government, and Lord Acton told it well. He said, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely." So that leads to the great dilemma of government. And James Madison put it extremely well in Federalist number 45 when he said, "In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself." So what then are the keys to good government? That's another one of your questions. They're simple. First, character. Second, limits. And we're going to take a look at each of these essentials for good government. First, character. Proverbs 29:2 says, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people sigh." Freedom is impossible without virtue. That's just the natural order of things. Virtue on the part of rulers and virtue on the part of people, particularly in a country like ours where rulers come from the people. John Adams tells us our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other. And George Washington, the father of our country, said in his farewell address, "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports." So character is vitally important. Ben Franklin, "Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have need of masters. If we have masters, we are slaves." What is freedom? That's an important question. Have you ever really pondered what is freedom? And a lot of great definitions. But unfortunately, if you ask a lot of people today, particularly young people, they'll say something like, "The freedom to decide myself and to choose what is right." That type of thing. Well, let me humbly suggest that freedom is not so much the right to choose. Freedom is the result of making right choices. That's something to think about. Freedom is the result of making right choices. So, again, the keys to good government involve limits. Now, this particular list here is taken from the Institute of the Constitution's Founding Fathers' Fivefold Formula. These are the keys according to Dr. Eidsmoe. First, limited delegated powers, a vertical division of powers, horizontal separation of powers, checks and balances, and reserved individual rights. This then leads us to the main topic for the presentation tonight, the great doctrines of the Constitution, and here they are. The doctrine of fidelity to Declaration principles, the doctrine of original intent, the doctrine of enumerated powers, the doctrine of separation of powers, the doctrine of balance of powers, the doctrine of representation, and the doctrine of reserved individual rights. We're going to take these and look at them one at a time. First, fidelity to Declaration principles. These were called first principles in the days of our founding. And this is covered in that presentation on the Declaration. Quickly, they are natural law, truth, the God of the Bible. Wrong. And democracy is demagogism. It's agitation, it's mobocracy. And by the way, that term mobocracy was penned by Benjamin Rush, one of our great founders. A republic, on the other hand, is characterized by statesmanship, liberty, and justice. In a democracy, individual and minority rights are insecure. Why? Because they can be voted away by 51%. Nobody's rights are secure. In a republic, however, individual and minority rights are secure. A republic is the only form of government where minority rights are secure. Incidentally, these come right out of the U.S. Army Training Manual. Here's the number. It was published in 1928. Pretty much through World War I and up into this era, our military was trained properly in the principles of American government, and why not? They talked about a minute ago. The U.S. Training Manual, published in 1928, was ordered, collected, and destroyed by FDR. And we were told in World War II that we were to make the world safe for democracy. A major sea change in philosophy occurred. Okay? And that training manual that got it right, that explained the proper differences between a democracy and a republic, was ordered destroyed by FDR. I want a hard copy of that document. You can find it online, but I want a hard copy. And if any of you knows how I can get a hold of a hard copy of that document, please let me know. Okay, the ideas of republics and democracies. Do you think maybe our first president would be an expert on the topic? Might be a good person to ask about this, ideas of republics and democracies. What did George Washington have to say? He said, republicanism is not the phantom of a deluded imagination. On the contrary, laws under no form of government are better supported, liberty and property better secured, or happiness more effectually dispensed to mankind in a republic. Okay, what about our second president, John Adams? He said, remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. Our founders knew. They studied the Greek democracies and other examples throughout history, and they knew. They learned from history. Okay, let's take another step forward. Our third president, Thomas Jefferson, what did he have to say on the topic? The Republican is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. One more. James Madison, our fourth president, who was also one of the three co-authors of the Federalist, said in the Federalist number 10, democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Another one of the co-authors of the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton, said, we are a republic. Real liberty is never found in despotism or the extremes of democracy. And the third author of the Federalist Papers, John Jay, also the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, said, pure democracy, like pure rum, easily produces intoxication, and with it 1,000 pranks and fooleries. I do not expect mankind will, before the millennium, be what they ought to be, and therefore, in my opinion, every political theory which does not regard them as being what they are will prove abortive. Karl Marx, on the other hand, in the Communist Manifesto, written in 1848, said the first step in the revolution is to raise the proletariat to the position of ruling class, to win the battle for or of democracy. Fascinating. Modern commentaries. H.L. Mencken, democracy is a pathetic belief in the collective wisdom of individual ignorance. Winston Churchill, the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. So there you have individual rights.
The American citizens and people coming over here pregnant until their child is born